Hi, my name is Shane Willits, and I am currently a student at the Florida Institute of Technology. I am studying applied behavior analysis, and what I have learned so far is that line graphs are a behavior analyst's best friend, and they're the most used graph in our field. But another thing that I've also discovered through my journey as a student is that Excel is often not our best friend. So I am going to create this video. Specifically, this one is on constructing multiple baseline design line graphs in an Excel platform. And I'm hoping that I can show you my tools and the ways that I do it to make it a bit easier so that maybe students in the future will be a little bit less confused than I was. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and pull up an Excel sheet that I've already kind of started. All I've done so far is you can see that I have 3 different participants. This is my name, my husband's name, and my baby's name. But this is all just made up data that I have just put in. Here we are doing a multiple baseline across participants. So there are 3 participants. We are observing the self-injurious behavior per minute, and we're going to implement a DRO intervention. Where these dark lines are, that is where we've implemented our independent variable. Basically, when constructing a multiple baseline design or graph, it's going to be 3 separate A-B design graphs, A-B being 2 conditions, A and B, in this case, baseline, intervention, baseline, DRO. We're going to make 3 A-B design graphs, and we're going to stack them. I wish it was as easy as it described. Honestly, it's pretty straightforward. It's just kind of tedious. And that's the most annoying part about the multiple baseline graphs in Excel. But let's get started, and maybe I can show you some ways to make it a little bit easier. So let's start with Shane's data. Here we go. I'm just going to highlight it, go to the Insert tab at the top, and I'm going to find this little icon that looks like a line graph. I want lines with markers. See, it says line with markers. Click on it. And Excel will automatically generate this very horrid graph for us. It's a good start. So let's just be grateful for what we've got. And then we are going to have to edit it to make it useful for us as in the research or the applied settings. So the first thing that I want to show you is up here in this formatting tab. I'm going to click it. And then you'll see this paintbrush on the right side that has like a little blue, it looks like it's been dipped in blue paint, and it's called the format pane. If you click on that, it's going to bring up this right-hand column chart area, format chart area, and this is going to be your best friend. So basically this will stay up with you for the entire process unless you exit out of it. And anything that I click within the graph, I will be able to edit in that format pane. I can change the color, I can change the shape of the markers, I can change the size of the markers, just about everything I can change right there. So keep that up, that's what I recommend. And let's get started. So the first thing that pops out to me is this ugly blue data path. In ABA, we do not like blue. Everything must be black and white. So I'm going to just click on the data path. It's going to highlight all those markers. And you see my data pane, my formatting pane has changed. So I'm going to go where it says line. And I do want a solid line. And I do not want blue, so I'm going to go ahead and change the color to black. So right now I have got a black line with blue markers. So I'm going to go ahead and go to this marker tab. And I'm going to drop down both the fill and the border, and I have to change both of those to black. What happens if I don't change both of them to black is that, let's say I fill the marker black, the border will remain blue. But because we want all black and white, we have to change them both to black. So a little tedious, but easy. The next thing that sticks out to me the most are my axes. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this horizontal axis, and it's just going to highlight that whole bottom. The first thing that I need some tick marks. So back in our format pane, I see this little bar graph thing. I'm going to go ahead and click on it. Go to where it says tick marks, major type, outside. Now you can't see it because the automatic, it automatically goes to like this light gray that you can't see. So I'm going to go to where it says line, solid line, and I'm going to change the color to black. That will change the color of my tick marks, but it'll also give me a solid black x-axis, which is what I want. I'm going to do the exact same thing to my vertical axis by clicking on the numbers, going back to the bar graph in my format pane, tick marks, major type, outside, back to the paint canister, line, solid line, black. While this is highlighted, I'm going to go ahead and go home to the font box, and I'm going to make this color red. And I also like to make it just a little bit bigger, so I'll make it a 10. Right now, specifically in my multiple baseline, I am not going to edit my numbers because they will be deleted, because in a multiple baseline design, you only need the horizontal labels at the very bottom. But I'm going to keep it here just for now so that we can do this. So over in our data, we see that Shane's intervention was implemented between session 6 and 7. So this is why I keep the numbers, so that I can go between 6 and 7, see this tick mark, go up and click. The reason I'm doing this is because we know that this is 2 conditions, which means I'm going to have to add a condition line. We also know that we cannot connect data paths across condition lines, which means there has to be a break in the data. And I'm going to show you just how to do that. So if you click the data path once, it'll highlight all of it. If I click it twice, it will just highlight that one part of the path that I want deleted. I'm going to go back to my format pane and click no line, and that gets rid of it for us. So that's kind of why I keep my numbers, just so that I know where my condition line is going to go. That's where I know where to break the data path. Speaking of lines, I'm going to go ahead and insert that by going to Insert, Shapes and Line. I'm going to go between 6 and 7. And I'm going to click. If I just click and I want to add this line, this condition line, I can move it, and it makes it so that it's going to be kind of off center. So, and I don't want that. So one really easy way to make sure it stays straight is by holding down Shift while you do it. So again, I'm going to go between 6 and 7. I'm going to click, and then I'm going to hold down Shift. And then as I'm holding down Shift, you can see that I can't move it left and right. So I'm just going to move it all the way to the top. It automatically makes my line blue, which I don't want. Up here in the left-hand corner, you can see it gives me the option to make it black. This is typically what I do because it's easier. However, if that does not pop up for you, go ahead and go back to your format pane. And where it says line, you'll see that it has the color blue. Just change it to black. Again, super easy. That format pane is your best friend. For a multiple baseline design, we actually do not need this title, so we can go ahead and delete that. However, by deleting the title, it has made it so that we don't have a lot of room for our condition labels. So I am also going to, so then we can click on the inside in the smaller box, and I'm just going to drag it down a little bit so we have a little bit of space for those labels. And if I need to adjust this again, I'm just going to hold down Shift and click and move. Okay. So now that my graph is a little bit shorter and I've got some room up top here, I can insert my text boxes. Go to the Insert tab, Text, Text box. I can make any size box because, again, they're easy to adjust. I'm going to type in baseline here, adjust my box. And then I like to keep these horrible horizontal lines that Excel generates for me, just because it helps me, one, know where to end my condition line at the top and where to put my condition labels so that they're on the same horizontal axis. So again, I need another one. So insert text box. It doesn't matter the size because you can change it. I'm going to label this one DRO because that is our rhetorical intervention that I'm implementing here. And then I can go ahead and click this x-axis, the labels. So I can't just delete those. So I have to go back to my format pane. I'm going to go back to this little bar graph, and where it says labels, drop down, and this label position, it says next to axis, I want it to say none. We're just going to get rid of those because we do not need them right now. It looks like the last thing we have to do is click on these awful horizontal lines. Those ones, I'm gonna, so these blue dots shows that it's highlighted. Go back to the paint canister and click no line. And it's gone just like that. Yeah. Okay, one last thing before we move on to Curtis's data is we need to add his name, so that we know that this first graph of our 3-tier graph is Shane's data. So again, I'm just going to go to insert, text box. I'm just going to put it here just for now while I type in Shane's name, adjust it. So when adding names, whether it's the behavior that we're measuring or the participant or the setting to a multiple baseline, we do have to have a border. So ignore fill, because if you try to fill it black, then you won't see the name. But this line, I do want a solid line and make sure that it's black. So I'm going to move it right here, because that's where I like it. And click out. And that is our first of 3 graphs. So I've already highlighted Curtis's data and again gone back to the line graph and just entered in that generic graph that they gave me. And I am gonna start editing. So what's really important and kind of annoying is that these graphs all need to be the exact same size. I did not change the size of the graph that it gave me, but in case you do, I can click on it. I can go to this, back to my format pane, and where it says size and properties, I'm going to click there, and I can click down on size. And I see that the height is 3 inches and the width is 5 inches. Let's say I had altered it. I can always write down those dimensions and then go over to my next graph that I've added, go back to size and proportion in my format pane, and I can change it so that they match exactly. But because I didn't alter the size when I put the graph in, they're automatically going to be 3 inches and 5 inches. So that's perfect. So let's get to editing this one. So I have gone through and just edited the basic parts of the second graph that we're adding. But what I wanted to add in here really fast for your information is sometimes when you pull up these second graphs, the y-axis won't match the y-axis from the first graph. For example, this one ends with 14. Sometimes this might end with like 10 or 8, or depending what the max number is in the next data path. So I just wanted to kind of show you how you could fix it. So I've got it highlighted here. I'm going to go ahead and go to my little bar graph and go to axis options. And here you can change the maximum. So let's just, for example, 13, it'll change it to 13. I do actually want it to be 14, so we'll change it back. But that way you can just, where it says bounds, you can add a new max. So let's say we had put in Curtis's data and the max was like 8. I could just come in here and it could be 14, because all of the y-axes need to match each other, basically. So I just wanted to show you how to do that really quickly. So as you can see, I've gone ahead and I've just done exactly what we did to Shane's data onto Curtis's graph. I did want to show you really quickly before we move on. If I ever need to adjust, for example, maybe this is too far this way or this is too far that way, I can just go ahead and match that. So this one looks like it's pretty well lined up, but in case I needed to move it, I could just simply move it this way to make sure that they lined up. I'm going to Control Z that because these ones look pretty decent. But if you ever did, you would click on the inside to make sure that the smaller square was highlighted, and then you can move it within that big box. You do not want to move this bigger outer border because you want that to match exactly to the one on top. And I will show you why later. So basically all I've done is I've copied Shane's exactly. I have put in a condition line. I have added Curtis's name with an outlined box. I've gotten rid of the labels on the x-axis. I do not need to keep adding condition lines all the way down, and you'll see why, because we'll connect all those condition lines. So I think we can go ahead and start on Donovan's graph. Okay, so I have quickly added Donovan's graph here. So some new things that we should probably add and talk about. We do need a y-axis label. So where would that go? And then eventually we will need an x-axis label for the entire thing. And where would that go? So for a grouping of three, so like a 3-tier design, we would need it in the middle. So we would typically put it on this middle one. So I'm going to go back to Curtis's graph, and I'm going to show you how to add a label. So here I've got it highlighted. I'm going to go to Chart Design, and right here on the left where it says Add Chart Element, Axis Title, and I'm going to add a vertical axis. That is tiny, but because this is a vertical title for 3 graphs, I want to make it pretty decently big. So I've got it highlighted. I'm going to go home to the font box here. I need to make it black, obviously, because we don't like gray. And I'm just going to kind of make it as big as I think that looks good, maybe at 18. And don't worry, we will move these graphs. Again, it's tedious to keep them the same size, but we will do that. It is necessary. So here along the vertical axis is our dependent variable. Here we are looking at self-injurious behavior per minute. And then obviously that's way too big. So I'm going to highlight it and just make it. Okay, and we'll bold it as well. So now we've got this weird issue where it's sitting on top of my graph because I don't have room. I'm going to move it to the as far left as possible, first of all. And then I'm going to go ahead and move my graph. So when I talked about moving the graphs and then aligning them, this is exactly where that would come into play. So I'm going to go ahead and move this guy. That looks good to me. But that means I also have to move all 3 of them. So again, I'm going to click on this smaller box within the big box, and I'm going to do my very best to line those up. Down here, again, just line those up. Looks pretty decent in my opinion. And then we do need a horizontal axis. Your horizontal label will go on the very bottom. So whether it's 2-tier, 3-tier, 4-tier, it will go on the very bottom. That's why we've been deleting these numbers on the labels. And so let's go ahead and add that. I'm going to make sure that this bottom chart is, or this bottom graph is highlighted. Go to Chart Design, Add Chart Element, Axis Title, Horizontal. Again, it's small, so we will fix it because we need this to be a bit more prominent than it is. I'm going to label this Sessions. It's typically what our x-axis looks like. Sessions, dates, time. I'm going to highlight it, go home to our font box. I'm going to make it black. And I'm just going to make it, yeah, that's good. I'm going to bold it. So I've decided on 12 font, but again, it's up to you. And the way that I'm going to make room for this is I am going to simply drag this up. That is it. Oop. Maybe I could drag this one down too. Like I said, it's tedious. Okay, great. So now we've got our y-axis label and our x-axis label. Okay, so far we have 3 graphs stacked on top of each other. I agree that it does not quite look like a multiple design, baseline graph. So this is where it gets tedious and kind of annoying, but we've got this. We'll take care of it together. So first, I'm just going to start from the top down. So this condition line, first of all, I've got to realign it because I changed the positioning of my graph a few times. But I'm going to drag this bottom dot. First of all, I'm going to hold shift so I keep it straight. I'm going to drag it down all the way as far as it can go, just like that, all the way down to the bottom of the box. Let's see if I can even go take it a little bit lower. Great, okay. And then I am going to go ahead and click within this box, insert, shape, line. And I'm going to line this one up right with the top of Curtis's condition line. Press shift so it stays flat. I'm going to try and line it up with Shane's condition line best that I can and make it black. Again, I'm going to make sure I'm clicked on the inside, insert, shape, line. And now I'm going to start from the end of this horizontal line, click, press shift, and I'm going to pull it all the way up. So it didn't totally match up with what I had with Shane's line, so I'm just going to move it over. Line up the X's. I'm going to put that green dot right in line. And when we click out, like I said, it's tedious, but we will do it together. So again, on this green dot, I'm going to click and press shift so it's straight, and I'm just going to move it up as far as it'll let me. So you see that it was too long, but I can just press shift and I can move it up to line up with that horizontal line right there. So when we click out of it, we have a connected line, which is exactly what we want. We're going to go ahead and do that between Curtis's and Donovan's graph as well. Okay, so here you can see I have realigned all the condition lines so that they're exactly where they're supposed to be on those tick marks. And I have added horizontal lines here and more vertical lines to connect them between the charts. Before we move on to our next phase, we also need to make sure that these gray borders that you see around all 3 graphs are gone. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So click on the big outside one, not the small picture, like the small box within the graph, but the big overall graph. And you're going to see border. I want no line over on our format pane. I'm going to do the same to all 3 of them. Again, make sure I'm clicking outside in the big box, border, no line. Clicking in the big box, outside, there you go, border, no line. And when we click out of this, you will see a multiple baseline graph. Now, this is kind of also a complicated part that I really want to show you, and that is moving this onto a document, because I feel like that's how we're going to be using them. Whether it's a Word doc, or a PDF or a Word doc that's moved into a PDF. I'm going to show you how to copy and paste it and keep it relatively in line so that we can use it in our work. First, I'm going to click on this inside and press copy. I right click copied. You can go up to file copy. I right click copy. Go over to our Word doc, right click, and here I could click, I am right clicking. I could click paste, but that's gonna jack it all up. So I wanna go to paste special, and I want to paste it as a PDF. There are a lot of people that will paste it as a picture. I've found that it comes out blurrier, and so I just use PDF, but it's up to you. That's the one that I like. As you can see, that first graph all copied over just fine, and so we're going to do it again to our second one. Here I have done that 3 times where I have gone back to my Excel document, right click copy, go back to my Word document, right click paste special, and I've specifically chosen PDF. All I did to get them aligned was I hit enter. So I was right here, I hit enter, and then I pasted, and it popped it down right underneath. You can see there are some it's not perfect, and that I can go in and I can zoom in on Excel and I can make it even more perfect. But for the purposes of this video, I think we understand. And then, like all graphs in ABA, we will add a figure caption just at the bottom. Okay, great. And that's it. So if you have any questions, let me know. I will attach my email.